Welcome to the Space Marketing Podcast, where we explore marketing principles, strategies, and tactics through the lens of space. In addition to our audio podcast, we have a companion video podcast that includes extra pictures and videos from today's guests. Spaceports are global in nature. They connect our world and will be a vital infrastructure as things like suborbital transportation grow and more space stations are in orbit. NASA has just approved funding for 3 space stations with a launch date of 2027 and a 4th taking over the International Space Station by the end of the decade. With other space station projects such as Blue Origin's Orbital Reef, Space Entertainment Enterprise movie starring Tom Cruise, and a space hotel expected to join them, the space industry will see massive changes. Our guest today is developing a spaceport gateway in Ecuador. It will provide education and inspiration to its community and develop the technology to manufacture space stations with artificial gravity that will serve the future havens to facilitate research, manufacturing, science, trade, and tourism in deep space. Please welcome the founder of Leviathan Space Industries and the person behind the push to have Ecuador in the space race, Robert Aillon. Hi, Robert.
Casey, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited. A great opportunity to be in your podcast. Thank you.
We have known each other for a couple of years now. Can you believe it? And I want you to know you have been inspirational in inspiring me to join the spaceport industry and inspired me to write a book about spaceports, along with one of the reasons why I'm speaking to you today on a podcast about spaceports. Most of our conversations have been about spaceports, but I would like to know more about your company. So can we start off the conversation with a bit about Leviathan Space Industries?
Yes, thank you. For us, it's very important when we started because our first question that we had was, what can we do with technology, in this case, to help the productivity of Ecuador and Latin America? Because the question is, these are emerging nations that are always on the road to development, but there's never a date set where they're going to be, first world countries or ready to make the big leap. So that's like the big quagmire. And for me, discovering that the space technology, in this case, had gone through a very interesting process where governments were giving room for the commercial sector to develop, for the private sector to find solutions, was something very important that I think can provide a special road for that development and for that need for the region. And that's why looking at the benefits that we can participate and how we can contribute, it makes sense for us to pursue the space technology and see what role can space for South America provide to leave the region and provide access to space for everybody.
So let's go to spaceports now. For those of you that are watching the podcast, we're going to have some extra footage about spaceports, and we have a picture about the vision for spaceports. So if you can describe the facility and tell us your vision for the spaceport in Ecuador.
So the idea in this case is to become a hub, develop an ecosystem, to become a central part of this new mode of transportation. For me, the most important cities and the most competitive ones in the future are going to be the ones that have access to a seaport, airport, and spaceport. Thinking about access to space is definitely going to be game-changing for many countries. And the countries that are going to be left behind are the ones who are not going to be taking that dip into this new industry. So we believe that it's very important because the number of applications and impact that it can have on local economies is just immense. It's infinite. Talking about how it impacts medicine, how it can impact tourism, how it can impact logistics, communications, agriculture, security. It helps solve the biggest questions out there. And the spaceport can be the focus where all the people come together to do their work, to do their science, to find the solutions and collaborate, where we can bring talent from all over the region and those solutions can then be going around. It is very important for me in this case that this relationship with the United States is at the center of it, because how we can bridge the gap between the North and the Southern hemispheres and working together and having American companies come and find new markets for the products and for the local economies in this case to be able to integrate their technology into their existing business models. So it's very interesting about what the future might bring. And that's why we think that developing the right infrastructure is going to be fundamental for this to start.
What stage is your spaceport in right now? I mean, where is it in the development?
Because everything is so new, we had to do a lot of work creating the right environment to have this level of conversation with authorities, with the government, with the universities, with the private sector. And for us, it has been a learning process and at the same time, a teaching process, because we have to educate all the participants of the ecosystem that we're looking to build. So bringing the universities on board, creating that trust, creating those relationships, seeing how their students can participate, their faculty is very important. And we're doing work in this case with elementary schools, universities, thinking about how the academic world can be participating, and also thinking about how local industries that are not space related can definitely be involved. And our conversations turn in this case to what we can do for the main agricultural products from the region: banana, coffee, cocoa, flowers. And that's very important because the need for technology and data is immense. So we need the right applications in this case for these different sectors. And when we talk to the government has also lots of needs about how they solve problems, how they deal with climate change, environmental protection, how they deal in this case with security at their borders or illegal activities, especially with mining. So space can play an important role with that. And going through the process and talking to them is something that we have been doing the last couple of years. Right now, with the new government, we're very encouraged because it has an important policy that Ecuador is open for business. And what we like to share with them is that also Ecuador should also be open to space. So we made great inroads, in this case, with the Ministry of Transportation and with the Air Force, where they definitely see a benefit of having access to space technology. So our goal for this year is to be able to sign a collaboration agreement so we can start doing all the necessary studies for the spaceport. Because for the spaceport to exist, you definitely need to do a lot of work, technical work, about what is the right place to build it, what's going to be needed regarding the environment, so it doesn't have a negative impact. How do we protect the local communities, and how we live in our harmony within all this. And when we think about the vision and what we like to create is this special place, we can even call it like a new type of city that develops, where we bring everybody together to participate and work, because the spaceport can be many things. It can be a place of learning, it can be a place of research, a place of testing, it can be a place where cargo and people are moved, it can be a place where we can get cargo from space, from the moon, coming back down. And that's going to be very important as manufacturing and mining is down the road in the next 20 or more years. So every spaceport around the world is going to have a different emphasis and a different task to do. And how these all collaborate and connect and integrate is going to be very, very important. So the idea is that this could be the first one of a network of spaceports in this case that can integrate, because if we are going to have new technologies bringing hypersonic flights and suborbital flights that can bring point-to-point transportation in record times, now that we see that what SpaceX is doing and other companies are looking to do too, that means that the time to travel around the world is going to be less than 2 hours. So thinking about how do you sell, how do you send your goods, how do you get people to your country for tourism and other activities, in less than 2 hours, is game changing. It's so hard to comprehend about how the world is going to be in such an environment. But it is exciting, and you have to be definitely ready for that. So that's the work that we're doing, so we can create the right regulatory environment, the right economic framework for this to be successful right now. And it's something that a normal spaceport usually takes 10 years from concept, approval, development. So just so you get an idea. But that's our goal. And we are patient enough and we are excited enough about the future where we definitely see that this is needed and it's going to be very impactful.
Back to your conversation a little bit, and I would like to talk about some of the words you used when you talk to the legislators or the lawmakers in the new government system in the schools. That is marketing. So where have some of the challenges been in your conversation with those entities?
Space is such an exciting topic, everybody loves it. And that's the cool part. Everybody says space is awesome. I love watching the launches. I love what SpaceX is doing. But what happens is most of the people, I would say even 90% or more, think of it as something that is just NASA related, government. They do it over there. It has nothing to do with us. We're excited that it happens and we love the news, but it's just so far away and out of reach for us to participate. And that's something that we're definitely looking to change. And that has been one of our main tasks as we've been tackling this subject and talking to the stakeholders, because it's about how they can get involved, how they can see the benefit, and how it can definitely change what they're doing in an impactful manner. So, for example, one of the main things that we wanted to do was that anybody can send something to space. And that's a really hard concept to imagine, because before, to send something to space, you had to pay millions of dollars or have a space program to be able to do it. But we worked with a local school, and in this case, the local school decided that they wanted to send some seeds to space. So we worked on a project, and we were able to get seeds from Ecuador, and these are the first seeds also from Latin America, to spend over a year in the International Space Station. And we could do that with a budget from an emerging nation like Ecuador, from a school. So you just imagine how kids can be involved. And they're 10 to 12 years old, and they develop this whole program of how they send radish seeds to space. And for me, if they're doing this at this age, when they're going to be 25, 30, and there's going to be no challenge that they can say that is going to be hard enough for them, because when they were 10 or 12, they already sent something to space. And that's like one of the hardest things to do. So breaking down those barriers is just really amazing, where there's going to be no mental locks on them to think about what they can do in the future, their opportunities and their own personal development. So I think that's very important. And just like you said, marketing plays a very important role, because it's about getting for them to understand the benefits, the impact, what they're going to do next with that, and how that becomes spread around different institutions in the country.
We're basically marketing space. We're marketing the idea of space and that it is accessible. And I know that working with kids, you are using education-based marketing in a way where you're challenging them and you're inspiring them, but you're also letting them know with your message that they can do it. And I know that working with kids is very important to you. So do you want to elaborate a little bit on some of your activities with the schools?
Definitely, because what happens is you cannot have development if you're not inclusive. And if we're going to be going to space, we definitely need to be very inclusive. And that's one of the main things about this project, is that we do not want the whole region, Latin America, to be left out and not participate in this exciting time. Because we're having a conversation the other day, and we're talking, this is like the age of discovery. Back in the 1600s, the new generation of explorers are going to be going out there and find amazing things. And we want everybody now to be able to pursue that if they so wish. But the important thing is that at least they have the opportunity to do it if they want, which is different than if they have no chance at all to participate and the opportunity passes by. And then 100 years go by, and then Latin America is going to be in the same spot as it was. And that's not what we really want in these days. So when we think about what the students are doing and thinking about the challenges that they face, there are many. for example, we have malnutrition, we have domestic violence, we have lack of access to universities. We have them not being able to do any science at all in their schools. So we work in this program with the English Cultural Center, which is part of the U.S. Consulate here in Ecuador. And they ask us to help them do a program for a group of students, 15 to 18 years old, girls that are leaders in their community, but they're from very impoverished backgrounds. And the idea was to get them excited so they can start thinking about going to the university as a career path for them to go. Because what happens is you are locked in this cycle of poverty when you don't think that you have other opportunities and other things to do. And it's very sad because that's what you see around, the same job opportunities or the lack of, so nothing happens. So there's no motivation for them to think about their impact of what's going to be next with the things that they learn. And the idea in this case with this group of students was about getting them excited about STEAM science careers. And we use space as an important part of that conversation to be the dynamo to get them excited about what's happening, what's the future, what's the history, and how it's going to be impacting them, and how they can definitely find a path as they decide to go into the university, and then what lies beyond. And just breaking down those mental barriers is just really something really important. So that's part of the work that we have been doing, and we had our second cohort this year so far. Last year we taught 15 students. Now we had another cohort bigger with 30, and it was great because we were able to get them to interact with Legos for the first time in their lives, do science for the first time in their lives, and for them to think, that there are other alternatives. And maybe the university, it's a great place for them to decide to explore. And then what comes next? And that was really cool. And for that, we were able to get a lot of different speakers and a lot of different experts regarding space and education to be able to participate in these programs. So that was really cool for them to hear their stories, how they started, what motivates them, and what they're doing right now. And that way they can have their own heroes. So they can definitely pursue those paths or create their own. So we even brought astronaut Gregory Johnson to Ecuador to be able to spend some time with them. So just imagine these kids who've never seen anything science related are spending time with an astronaut, and it's changing their lives. So you can imagine just their level of excitement as they go and learn all this, and they see and they can understand, oh, that's a shuttle, and we built a shuttle, and now I'm here with the astronaut who was the pilot for that. So that's just amazing.
And you also work with the Blue Origin program as well. You want to touch on that?
So yes, we've been supporting the Club for the Future initiative, which I think it's amazing. The idea of having everybody across the world be able to send a postcard to space is something really life-changing. Something so small can have such a big impact. And that's why we've been working with local schools here in Ecuador, so they can actively be able to send their own postcards from their students. Just imagine, you're like 5, 10, 12-year-old, and then you send your own postcard to space, and then you get it back. That's the coolest part. And you have your own souvenir that went to space. So thinking about how space is accessible now, that even you can send something for free, in this case, it's sponsored by Blue Origin and the Foundation Club for the Future, it is just a great place to be. And I think those are opportunities where we need to make such an effort where we can get more people involved. And I think that not only in South America, but also in the US, where more students are involved and they can participate and they can see these opportunities, because we need that talent. We need the talent to be able to pay attention about what's happening right now in space, so they can definitely help us save the planet and look at what's happening beyond.
Ecuador has a history in space. Can you tell us about it?
That's really exciting because back in the 1950s, the United States and Ecuador started a relationship where they built a NASA tracking station in the Cotopaxi volcano. And it was very important because it helped support communications with the moon missions with Apollo and also satellite communications where all the data was coming down. So it was part of a network of ground stations that was established around the world to be able to support that. And for almost 30 years, that was under the hands of the NASA contractors, in this case, managing the information for NASA. Then in the late 1970s, it was moved to the Ecuadorian government, who took hold of those facilities ever since. And we went to visit 10 days ago the facility, and it's just going through time because it's a time capsule of NASA facilities from the 1950s, 60s, still working just like they were. The restrooms, the chairs, the air conditioning, the computers are still with the tapes they're running, which is just beyond, comprehension, but still there serving a purpose. But slowly but surely, things get damaged. They're difficult to repair or fix or replace. So that's the challenge about how these sites, which in my opinion should be historical sites for preservation, should definitely be maintained for future knowledge of humanity, because they play such an important role supporting the first satellites and supporting the first missions to the moon, which is really exciting.
What advice do you have for other countries as they begin their spaceport infrastructure journey? Because this is global. I mean, point to point is going to be a very real thing very quickly.
So point to point, the concept means that you can connect from one part of the world to another, from one spaceport in Ecuador, for example, to another one in Africa or Asia. And you can use the next generation of vehicles that should be made available within the next 15, 20 years, but you have to be ready for that. And what happens is going to be taking less than 2 hours for you to travel from one part of the world to another. So just imagine you wake up in New York, you start your day, you have breakfast, and you go to work. But you go to work at your job in Paris, France, and you're there for most of the morning, the afternoon. Then afterwards you leave, you decide to go grab dinner in Tokyo. So you grab dinner in Tokyo. And then you get a late flight back to New York and you go back to your bed. So that's your working day. Just imagine how the world is going to change by that. How countries have to be prepared to handle that change, where the flexibility of labor is going to be very important, where the movement of goods is going to be in such reduction time. What's going to happen with inventories? What's going to happen in this case with countries that have to do trade agreements to facilitate all this, and how tourism is going to work out. And for example, one comment that I remember a couple of years ago, somebody made is, how are cruise ships going to work? Because before you can go on a 7-day cruise ship in the Caribbean, but now you can go on a 7-day cruise ship or cruise trip around the planet in a similar amount of time. So it's just mind-boggling. It's just talking like what's going to happen with the internet in the 1980s. People are saying, "Oh, that's not going to happen. That's so hard, so difficult." But that's where the entrepreneur spirit comes in and takes advantage of all these new infrastructure and technologies and brings them together to create new solutions and new business models and new opportunities. So that's what we have to be ready for.
It's very exciting when you said that you go on a cruise around the world. We did that last year with Inspiration 4. They went around for 3 days. So it's a very real thing in our very near future.
Exactly. And when you talk about how do the other countries get involved, and I think that's the key question. We had a week ago a conference called the GLEC in Quito, in Ecuador, talking about space ecosystems, the development for emerging nations. And that's part of the International Astronomical Federation conference. And it was great because we were able to get people from all over the world coming together to Ecuador to learn about space and the role that space ecosystem evolved, and now how this ecosystem should fit into this wider machinery. And everybody has different views. And when you start thinking about, should the government lead? Should the private sector lead? Should the academic world and the scientists lead? But the real question is how you bring everybody together to the table, to the conversation, where you're able to establish priorities, establish needs, areas of collaboration, and where you can definitely identify opportunities. And it takes a very mature group of people to be able to do that. And it's very hard. It is really, really hard. But the important part, I think, that as long as we maintain, the human spirit, the liberty of us finding our own entrepreneur and allowing that opportunity for you to develop and find the market opportunities that you want, that's what's definitely going to be the big driving force. Because sometimes when you have the government involved, it's very controlling, can be very limiting, it can curtail certain activities, but there needs to be a balance too. So there needs to be the driving force, which is the private sector, with the help of the government to spur the growth, maintain the momentum, protect it, because this is a nascent industry. And then you need to have the educational aspect ready to go with that, the universities, the schools, and then you need to have the local industries to be participant. And I think that is something very, very important, because if you build this ecosystem that is just closed upon itself, it's very hard to be able to make it meaningful for the rest. And that's not something that you do not want. You definitely wanted this to be impactful for the technologies and the knowledge to share in every part of your society and your local industries in this case. So I think that's where the big opportunity lies and the big challenge is. It's about how do we touch everybody within the system for them to be excited about space. But I think definitely the entrepreneur spirit should be the driving force in this case, and with all the help of all the local actors.
Well, and touch on a very important point is that the more controlling a government is for this particular space industry, the more likely they're going to be left out, because it's global, it's all inclusive. And if you put yourself in a tight little bubble, then you're not going to have access.
Exactly. And there was a conversation that we had quite a few number of years ago, talking about what do we need to start things and to do them. And the answer was just the will. And that's a really powerful message in this case, that it just takes up a strong decision that you're going to be moving forward, and you decide to act on it. And you have to be disciplined, you have to be committed, and you have to work as a team, and then you have to make sure that you achieve all your goals. But having that initial will, it's really important. So when we have all these other nations around the world thinking about space, they have to develop that internal will of being part of it, because they're going to be missing so much if they don't take action now. So that's for me the most important aspect. It's about getting people excited and thinking about this is inclusive. Everybody can participate. And like from the conversations that we had, I like the space industry because everybody is not only so friendly, they're very open to share information, because their success is your success. So that's very different from other industries, because such competitive environments and data and information, it's hard to get, and players might not be very open to collaborate on certain aspects. But here, everybody has this big picture approach about that we all need to be successful for us to reach our goal as humanity goes forward. So that's what I really enjoy about the space industry, in this case, during the few years that I've been part of.
Well, and we can't do it alone. We have to be with each other. And I know that you have developed a lot of points of contact with other countries and with other entities. For example, I know that you work with the University of Kentucky, and you've developed some collaboration with Houston, and you're just all over the place. Do you want to talk about some of your connections?
Definitely. And I think this is really important, because as you're looking to build capabilities, you're looking to establish relationships, and you need to create trust, and you need to have a track record. And the way to gain support, resources, and talent in this case is to be able to show how we can be meaningful and impactful in all these other environments coming together. So with the University of Kentucky, my alma mater, I was very excited to be able to work on a project with them. And we did some work for NASA regarding during the pandemic. And it was a fun learning experience, very challenging because of all the communications problems that, that you cannot leave your home and all the restrictions, but it was worthwhile. Then with Rice University, for example, right now, we were part of a couple of projects, and the last one was a study regarding climate change, where Rice University, the University of Edinburgh, and we encourage the Spol University from Ecuador to participate, in this case, for this application for the National Science Foundation for a grant. And it was great to have all these different participants coming together about learning what can we do in this case for protecting, forests and mangroves in tropical regions with access to space data, and creating the right models and infrastructure to have all this data be part of that. So that's something really exciting that we just finished, and we hope that we're successful within that process. But if that doesn't work, it doesn't matter, because we're already established the relationships and the personalities to be able to work on more projects together. So, it just takes people to come together that way. Also with Thunderbird School of Global Management, I am so excited. I just joined a master's program this year, an executive master's in global management regarding space. It's the first space management program. And it's just so cool because you have the next leaders being shaped right there, preparing to take the space industry by storm. So the amount of talent there is just amazing. We have people from the Space Force, people from the Air Force, doctors, lawyers, people that work in insurance, consulting like KPMG, entrepreneurs, and they're all looking at how space can impact all these different industries. And one of the things that you need is these criteria of leaders, to be able to manage these opportunities, manage the technical teams, be able to grow the business. So it's not only aerospace engineers that need to get involved, you need everybody. And that's why marketing is so important, and communications and the sales aspect and the controls that are needed, and all careers are touched by the space industry. And we need to definitely focus on that.
Is there one thought that you want to leave our listeners with tonight as far as space and the globalness of it?
I think the biggest challenge that I like to ask people, and I'll ask all the listeners in this case, is think about what you do, and think about what space can do to change your current job, your current opportunities, your current environment, and think about what can you do to be involved or participant in case you're not part of the space industry, because that's going to be really opening up your mind to see what's happening with all these quick changes that are happening, because it's going so fast, and we're not noticing that it's changing so rapidly. We're going to have SpaceX with their Starlink project having internet worldwide coverage within a year or so. It's happening so fast. Just imagine that any part of the world is going to be covered with internet access. That's just mind-boggling. We're going to have a new generation of entrepreneurs developing so many things because of space access and internet access in this case. And then for the people that are part of the space industry, I will issue them this challenge. Talk to at least 5 people that are not aware of space, either companies or individuals, and share that with them, so they can know what is happening. And I think that's part of the part where marketing needs to be relevant. We need to really sell and share that idea about what space can do for others. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we have so far. People around the world to buy into this big idea.
I completely agree. There's a disconnect right now with space, and we need to make sure that people understand how it will impact them. So, well, thank you so much, Robert. I loved our talk, and I look forward to more of them in the future. So,
Easy. I'm so glad for the invitation, and I hope our listeners had a fun time. And again, thank you so much. It's a privilege to be here.
Thank you. Please subscribe before you check out the show notes for bonus footage. Links to YouTube and other social media channels can be found on spacemarketingpodcast.com. A special thank you to Robert Aillon from Leviathan Space Industries for joining us today and sharing his vision of Ecuador's role in the new space economy. Be sure to check out his website listed in today's show notes. Join us next week as we speak to Alice Carruth from Spaceport America to get the wrap-up from this year's Spaceport America Cup, the world's largest intercollegiate rocket engineering conference and competition. A sincere thank you to you, my listeners. I hope that you find this podcast useful for your journey as you reach for the stars.